Good evening. My dear listener, I hope you slept well last night, because those I'm about to tell you about never sleep again. Settle in, take a deep breath, and try not to imagine those chains tightening around your own wrists. Gray dawn seeps through a crack in the warped shutters, turning the dust in the air to silver. You wake on a sack of straw that pricks your shoulders through the thinned linen of your tunic, the smell of yesterday's soured grain curling in the back of your throat. A timber overhead groans. Somewhere in the courtyard, a bucket of dishwater splashes into a gutter, and a pig squeals as if scalded. Your hand gropes for the scrap of cloth you used as a blanket, but Marcella has already taken it for her dawn shift at the oven. Cold floors remind you that comfort is not yours to own. You are Praxida, a kitchen slave in the house of Tiberius Claudius Quintus. 17 or perhaps 18. Nobody bothers to count precisely when skin is measured only in denarii. Last Saturnalia, they said you were worth 60. The number sits behind your eyes like a bruise each time the auction block is mentioned. You rub sleep from your lashes and sit up, hearing the mice scatter onto the board. The loft where you sleep hangs above a clamor of tenements in the Sabura. 5 stories of brick and worry, stacked over noisy shop fronts that sell shoe nails and sour wine. On the upper floors live those worth the least. Your wrists know the height by the ache each evening. Beside you stands a clay jug, stoppered with an oily rag. You pull it free and drink a mouthful of posca, water soured with vinegar. It stings, but wakes you faster than any trumpet of the watch. Below, in the narrow courtyard, the communal fire pit still smolders. You and Marcella need living coals before your master's kitchen stirs, so you wrap your shawl tight, pick your way down 30 groaning stairs, and kneel in the ash. Your fingers prod for embers that still glow orange under the gray. Marcella waits, stronger but ignorant of spices. You, thin yet deft, are the one who seasons. A copper pot of hardened tallow sits nearby. You drop 2 embers into the grease. It spits and catches, a tiny sun cupped in your palms. Kitchen shelves loom around you. Sealed amphorae of garum, sacks of beans, pine nuts scattered like pale insects. Above them, an ink-splashed scrap lists the morning fare. Pulse tepida, lucanike, ova alexa. Worn barley porridge, sausages, boiled eggs. Nothing grand, but even mistakes will earn the scourge across your shoulders. Thereas the steward appears with a lamp, its smoke slicing a yellow cone through the dawn. Hair up, Praxida. 1 hair in the pot and I'll have your hide, not your price, he hisses. You bow, gather your dark braid, bind it with a fraying wool ribbon. The movement shifts the pale scar along your collarbone, shaped by a mistress's heated key 2 owners ago. It no longer hurts. It simply reminds. You break yesterday's loaf into chunks, counting them like a soldier's arrows. A worm had fallen out of the crust last night. You tore that piece away and fed it to the chickens. Now, each fragment drops into boiling water, swelling into the porridge that will keep your master alive without thinning his purse. A ladle of garum follows, its stench of fermented fish thick enough to hide any hint of mold in the grain. Steam beads in your hair until you yourself smell briny. In the corner, Marcella mutters a prayer to Juno while coaxing flame from a handful of twigs. You whisper another name, Eurydice, your mother, stolen from you on a dock in Ephesus 4 years ago. They say a mother can feel the breath of her child across the sea. You exhale slowly, sending a silent wisp toward the Aegean. The porridge grows smooth. You pinch a fingertip of cinnamon, luxury, a leftover from last night's banquet, and let it fall in a brown swirl. Varys snarls that the master dislikes waste, but you know the bowl will go to his children, and children adore sweetness. Hooves clang beyond the archway as a squad of Praetorians clatters past on Via Sandalarius, morning sun flashing on their helmets. The mix of sweat, horse, and freedom rides the breeze. For a heartbeat, you imagine gripping a lathered mane and galloping beyond the Milvian Bridge. Your coals are settled. It is time for water. Marcella lifts a pottery amphora nearly as old as you, its clay shoulder stamped with the initials CF, relic of a previous household. She wraps a strip of ox hide about its throat, so you can sling it like a basket across your back. The vessel coos your forearm. The word venom, or for sale, flickers again behind your ribs. You steel yourself and push through the low door into the lane. The alley breathes heat and refuse. Vendors drag shutters upward, dislodging roaches that scatter toward gutters. A baker's boy dashes past with a tray of onion pastries, their crusts already dark with soot. You hug the amphora close, avoiding spattered walls slick with last night's tavern bonnet. Every step downward reminds you of the upward climb to come. Full again, and heavier. At the fountain, slaves jostle for place, bronze dipper bowls clanging like bells. You wait your turn, eyes lowered, as a fishmonger's apprentice laughs about a new batch of Thracian girls arriving at the market by noon. The word auction drifts like ash. You fill the amphora, seal it, heft its chill weight onto your shoulder. Water sloshes. A few drops trickle down your spine. Shocking, but clean. Back through the maze of streets, you pass a wine cellar, haggling over the price of must pressed only yesterday. Pass a barber opening his shop by sharpening blades against stone. Pass a column where someone has chalked an ad for runaway slaves. 2 sesterces reward, or 1 if returned maimed. You look away quickly. The letters feel as though they burn your own heels. The tenement stairs rise before you, steeper on the return. You climb, breaths short. Amphora creaking. On the 3rd landing, a crack in the wall frames a slice of sky, brightening to pale gold. It is beautiful, and it hurts, because in that sky, the birds are theirs alone. You reach the kitchen. Marcella's face glistens with sweat. She grins when she sees the amphora and ladles a scoop of clean water into the simmering pot. The porridge has thickened to a mild, sweet sludge. Soon you will carry bowls to the triclinium, pour watered wine, coax the smallest child to eat her egg. Later will come scrubbing amphorae in stale urine, patching cracked dolia in the cellar, listening to older slaves whisper that the master lost heavily in dice and might sell 2 bodies by week's end. For now, you breathe the scent of cinnamon and smoke, and cling to the single fragile victory of a breakfast prepared without scalds or screams. For now, you breathe the scent of cinnamon and smoke, and cling outside. The city fully wakes. Cartwheels grind, dogs bark. A senator's litter is borne past with the squeal of cane poles. The day stretches wide, full of tasks that are not yours, yet must be done by your hands. You swallow the last of the posca coating your tongue, and think, quietly, that at least this morning you know which house you will sleep in when darkness returns. Tomorrow is a promise woven of coin and chance. Today, you stir the pot and whisper your mother's name into the steam. Your bare feet slap the gritty stairs, every step echoing up the narrow shaft like a muted drum. You count them the way legionaries count marching paces. 30 down to the courtyard, another 12 to the street, because numbers hold the world together when a life can be torn open by a single whim. At the bottom, the doorway yawns, exhaling night-stale air laced with fry oil, latrine fumes, and the sweet sting of cheap resin torches guttering out. You tighten your grip on the amphora's leather sling, feeling the clay lip bite your palm, and step into the alley before the sun quite owns it. Sound comes first. Vendors singing prices they have not yet written. Mule bells clinking like small prayers. A lover's quarrel spilling out a window overhead. The subura is always loud, but dawn softens it. Arguments thud instead of crack. Laughter bubbles low, and the cobblestones themselves seem to hush, waiting for the heat that will hammer them by midday. A stray dog noses a heap of cabbage leaves and eyes you, uncertain whether you are threat or kin. You offer it a glance and keep moving. The dog is free after all, and you are not. Past the butcher's stall, where yesterday's blood darkens the gutter, you skirt a pair of cart ruts filled with rainwater gone slick with ash. Across the way, a Syrian spice dealer sprinkles crushed myrtle on the ground to mask the smell of rotting citrus. He tips 2 fingers to his brow when he sees your amphora. Water means business, and business is life. You nod, but do not slow. Veres expects you back before the porridge curdles, and Veres' expectations weigh more than courtesy. The street curves toward a low arch that frames the forum fountain. Marble chipped by generations still gleams where the masons polished it. But algae feathers the basin's green, and a new crack snakes from a lion's carved eye. Slaves cluster like sparrows around the spouts, bronze dippers flashing. Each jostle carries unspoken hierarchies. Household slaves in modest tunics shove stable boys, who in turn elbow kitchen girls like you. Overall, freeborn water sellers snarl warnings about line order none of them mean to keep. You plant yourself at the edge, amphora braced against your thigh, and wait. The girl in front of you is perhaps 13. Her right arm branded with an S-shaped burn that marks her as state-owned. She smells of lamp oil and salt fish. Her master must run a taberna by the docks. She turns, brown eyes flicking across your face. "Which house?" she asks in Greek, so thick you almost miss it. "Claudius Quintus." You answer in Latin. Greek reminds you too much of home. She nods, unreadable, then pivots as the line shuffles forward. A helmeted watchman strolls past, hand on sword hilt, whistling a bawdy tune. Conversations drop a notch until he disappears around a stack of amphorae. Fear is a thin ice everyone pretends will hold. Your turn arrives. You kneel, guiding the amphora mouth beneath the dolphin-headed spout. Cold water rushes in, drumming the clay so hard you feel it in your teeth. A little splashes your forearm, and the freshness is a shock so pure it almost tastes like joy. You let the amphora fill until it throbs with weight. Then lever it upright and cork it with a twist of linen. The journey back will be heavier. Your shoulders already anticipate the ache. As you stand, a voice as slick as ox fat slides over your shoulder. "Pretty shoulders for a kitchen girl." You turn. A man in a saffron-dyed tunic and cheap perfume grins, eyes flicking from the amphora to your face. His thumb strokes the handle of a wax tablet tucked in his belt. The ledger of a slave broker. You have seen his like on the auction square. Bold tooth, soft hands, appetite for fear. He smells the way hawks smell mice. "Your master sells today?" he asks. "I could fetch a good price." Greek tongue, nimble wrists, perhaps more. Your pulse stutters. You think of cinnamon on porridge, of Marcella's cracked hands, of the children who giggle when you shape bread into turtles. You think, too, of 60 denarii, and how little that is against a loaded pair of dice. "My master is satisfied." You lie, voice flat. Masters are satisfied until they are not. He smiles wider, revealing the gold tooth, and flicks ash from his sleeve. "Tell him," Vitellius Septimus asks after him. He moves on, plucking at another slave's sleeve, leaving the words buzzing like flies. You hoist the amphora onto your back, the strap across your chest pinching skin. Each step away from the fountain feels precarious, as though the ground might tilt you back toward Vitellius's ledger. You take a different route home, weaving through alleys where laundry lines strike the sky. A shutter bangs, scattering pigeons. From an upper balcony, a lyre twangs. Someone practicing scales, too early for neighbors' taste. Below, a beggar with only one eye mutters a soldier's marching chant. Upturned bowl empty, save for a beetle crawling its rim. You slip a crumb of bread from your pocket, yesterday's crust you saved from the pigs, and drop it in. He blesses you in the name of Fortuna. You wonder if she bothers with people like you. The sun clears the roofline, and light ricochets off window glass, stabbing your vision. Heat begins its daily climb. You pass a fresco newly painted. Mercury with a purse, ruddy cheeks bright against the plaster. Someone has already scratched a crude phallus beside the god. Humor or insult? Who can say? Human hands cannot resist adding to what seems complete. Ahead, two boys chase each other, swords of reed slapping thighs. They dart across your path, giggling, "Barbarian" and "Caesar," before vanishing around the wine shop. Their freedom is jagged, careless. You watch a moment before resuming. The amphora's water shifts, reminding you it is not wise to linger. You watch a moment before resuming. The amphora's water shifts, reminding you it is not wise to linger. Near the tenement, a small procession blocks the street. A bier carried by 4 men in dark cloaks. A woman trails behind, hair unbound, nails raking her cheeks. Funeral. The dead wrapped in coarse wool, pennies on eyelids. You bow your head as they pass, though you do not know the name. Death is an acquaintance of every class, but you nod as if to a cousin. Sooner or later, he will nod back. At last, the insula rises before you, its brickwork baking under new sun. You set the amphora down, shake pins and needles from your arms, and begin the ascent. Halfway, a door cracks open on the 3rd landing. Fabricius, one of the master's debtors, lurches out, smelling of wine and terror. "Girl," he slurs, grabbing your elbow. "Is Quintus above? He must grant me another day." His grip is soft, more plea than threat, but you twist free, heart thudding. The Dominus sees no one before the midday meal, you say, voice polite from long practice. He sways, eyes wet. "He will ruin me." "I carry water," you answer, "because you can offer nothing else." He lets you go, sagging against the wall. You climb the next flight, knowing his ruin may become yours if coins do not tilt the right way. Inside the kitchen, steam fogs the small window. Marcella wipes sweat with a flour-coated wrist and sighs relief at the sight of the amphora. The porridge is ready, cinnamon ribboning its surface. You pour a measure of clean water into a clay jug, add a dash of posca for the children, and set it aside. Verres bursts in a moment later, tunic immaculate, face already shining with oil. He sweeps the room, notes the filled amphora, the finished porridge, and gives a curt nod. Praise enough. Teed. Then he flicks a coin onto the table. Thin, bronze, stamped with Nero's profile. "Market errand," he says. "After you serve breakfast, fetch onions, celery, 2 hens. The master entertains a creditor tonight." Your stomach knots. Creditors mean tension. Tension means mistakes. Mistakes breed punishment. You bob your head. Yes, varies. Marcella meets your eyes after he leaves. "Creditor?" she mouths. You nod again. Weary. Her lips purse. She glances toward the amphora, then to the stairwell, as though measuring escape routes that do not exist. Finally, she squeezes your hand. A dry warmth that says, "We breathe still." You ladle porridge into wooden bowls, sprinkle each with a whisper of honey if the bees were kind this year, and carry the tray through a low doorway toward the atrium. The children sit cross-legged on mosaic tiles, sleepy, curls must. They grin when the cinnamon scent reaches them. As you hand the eldest his bowl, he asks, "Why does the porridge taste like spice this morning?" "Because the sun rose red," you say, a superstition you invent on the spot. He considers this gravely and nods, satisfied. If only the world could be so easily explained. You retreat to the kitchen, heart fluttering from the lie, though no one will flog you for pleasing a child. Marcella is already scrubbing the porridge pot with a wad of straw. Through the slit window, you glimpse the slave broker Vitellius pausing in the street below, squinting up at the insula as though reading its bricks. He scribbles on his wax tablet, then strides on. The strap mark across your chest throbs, phantom of the amphora now resting quiet. You draw breath, let it out slow. The day has barely begun. The market awaits. The hens still peck unsuspecting grain. The creditor sharpens quills. You roll your shoulders, testing their strength, and reach for the basket that will carry the next weight. Smoke curls toward the rafters, the thin blue strands twisting like snakes trying to escape. You crouch by the brick hearth, cheeks flushed, as flames lick the underside of a blackened cauldron. The air tastes of ash and rendered lard, and every blink stings your eyes. Yet this place, the kitchen's belly, is where your day must settle. Marcella shoulders through a curtain of steam, balancing a crate of limp leeks against her hip. "Chop," she orders, dropping the load onto the scarred oak table. The word is a mercy. Conversation wastes breath in this heat. You snatch the bone-handled knife, its edge wavy from years of hurried whetstones, and slice root from stalk with the rhythm of a water clock. Tick, tick, tick. Each severed leaf oozes pale sap that glues your fingertips together. Around you, the hierarchy of fire hums. Verez has stalked off to tally stores, leaving the floor to Marcella's quiet reign. Above her stand the house steward, the dominus, the great piled coins of Rome. Below her, you and two scullions who scrub pots until their nails split. Still lower, the hearth dogs, ribs sharp under mangy fur, wait for peelings to fall. The cauldron on the main hearth holds yesterday's pork bones and a knob of salt. Another on the side hearth bubbles barley in goat milk. Your task, turn common barley into pulse that tastes of comfort, not desperation. Behind you, the youngest scullion, Rufus, grates cheese rind into flakes fine as sawdust. He hums between grinds. Some nursery tune he probably learned before debt sold his mother. Crash startles the lot of you. Phoebus, the older scullion, has let a copper pan clatter to the floor. The sound rings like temple bronze. Marcella wheels, ladle raised, but before she can scold, Verez reappears. lips pinched. "Break one more pan, and I dock supper," he snaps. Phoebus mumbles apologies, hands trembling as he rights the pan. You return to the knife, aware that Varus' gaze lingers on your shoulders, perhaps measuring them against Vitellius's whispered offer. He finally turns, robe swishing, and the room exhales. You scrape leek rounds into the cauldron. Their green brightens, scent sharp and sweet. Next comes garum, the kitchen's heartbeat. You lift the amphora stopper. A wave of fermented fish slaps your sinuses. Even after months, you cannot decide if you hate or crave it. A ladleful pours in, hissing when it meets hot broth. Steam erupts, wrapping you in the memory of distant shorelines where this fish once swam free. Marcella samples with a wooden spoon. Chews thoughtfully. More vinegar, she decides. You fetch a jug of sour wine so turned it could strip rust. Tip a swallow into the pot. Watch the surface shiver. Behind you, Rufus sneezes. The pepper he grinds flying like sparks. Hours concertina into scent and sound. Wood popping, metal clanging, the constant wheeze of bellows, feeding the smaller fire where sausages roast on an iron grate. Fat drips, exploding in tiny bursts. The dogs whine, nostrils quivering. You flick a scrap of gristle. The fiercest hound snatches it midair, growling at others who dare envy. Mid-morning light slices through the high window, turning floating ash to motes of gold. Marcella shoos Rufus to fetch fresh water. Alone beside the broth, you stir slow circles, listening to marrow surrender from bone. With each pass of the spoon, the surface clears a heartbeat, showing reflections, the ceiling beams, the trembling flame. Your own face, eyes too old for 17. A whisper reaches you over crackle and sizzle. Phoebus leans near, voice barely sound. They say the master lost again at dice last night. Your spoon pauses. How much? Enough that the steward counts every hand twice. His gaze darts to the doorway. Somebody will pay. The broth resumes its soft boil. You swallow a pulse of dread, thicker than the soup. Phoebus drags the pan to the wash trough, shoulders hunched. In the hallway, footsteps, light, quick. The Domina's eldest daughter flits in, silk hem grazing soot. She wrinkles her nose. It stinks like fish, she declares. Yes, Domina, you reply, dipping your head. She puckers her lips, then spies a bowl of dates cooling for afternoon sweets. Two vanish into her palm. She slips out, leaving laughter like wind chimes. You glance at the dwindled pile. Varus will notice the count. Marcella returns, sees the gap, lifts an eyebrow. You only shrug. A slave cannot accuse a master's blood. The barley is ready when it clings to the spoon in a lazy ribbon. You ladle potions into glazed bowls, dust each with cheese powder. A final swirl of olive oil so green it looks black. Phoebus lines platters with sliced olives. Rufus wipes rims clean with a rag dampened in wine. Presentation matters. Patrician stomachs praise first with eyes. Verez claps twice. You form a train. Marcella first with the meat, you with pulse, the boys with bread and sauce. Through the service door awaits the atrium, cool and marbled. Conversation there will float about Senate intrigues and chariot odds, never touching the sweat that minted these dishes. You step onto polished mosaic. The Dominus lounges on a low couch, editor opposite him, fingering an ivory tally stick. Their smiles are coins, bright, thin, liable to vanish. Children squat on stools, spoons poised. You kneel, offer bowls. The creditor's gaze drifts over you, the way buyers test a horse. You keep eyes on the floor, count heartbeats until Marcella taps her elbow. Done. Back in the kitchen, relief lasts a breath. Rufus upends the washing tub, sending greasy water across the tiles. It races toward the embers of the side hearth. You and Themis dive with rags, slapping puddles before hiss can turn to flame. Marcella cooses inventive gods. Rufus mutters apologies so small they might be prayers. When order returns, Varys appraises the scene. No scorch marks, no smoldering beams. Then thrusts a wax tablet into your hands. Whist what we burn each day, he commands. Wood, oil, meat drippings. The master demands accounts. You nod, stylish, trembling. Numbers again. The fragile bars of a cage whose door may open either way. You carve tallies, 3 1/2 bundles of pine, 1 amphora of cheap oil, 2 ladles of fat. Each mark a step toward or away from the auction square. Marcella sets a hand on your shoulder when Verez leaves. Right, neat, she murmurs. Neat looks honest. You manage a smile. Ink would blot, but wax forgives. Still, honesty cannot at a loss. As the noon sun spears through the window, you smell the city warming, garbage, perfume, wet stone. In that scent rises the faint metallic tang of chance. Eat while we can. She presses into your palm a crust spread with broth soft marrow, still warm. You bite. The richness pools on your tongue, a hush amid clamor. For a moment, the kitchen is only the chew of bread. The hush of simmer, the beat of your own blood counting time. Outside, Rome roars, but here, in the heat of the hearth, you exist, sweating, stirring, breathing smoke, but existing. Sometimes survival is no less than triumph. The street outside the insula hums like a hive. Crack, you sling the reed basket over one shoulder, its weave still damp from the last rinse, and step into a glow that has already scrubbed noon's shadows clean. Heat rises in waves off the paving stones, blurring distant columns of the Forum Holatorium until they seem to sway like masts on a restless sea. Onions first, Varys said, and celery, and 2 hens fat enough for a creditor's gullet. Hens must come last, or they will panic themselves stringy. So you set your mind on produce. The basket bumps your hip. A coin purse with Nero's worn face clinks at your belt. Its thin mouth cinched so tight you fear it may suffocate before you reach a stall. The Forum gate yawns. stenciled by bars of sun and flies. Inside, everything, cabbage heads, thump onto tabletops. Fishmongers slap mullet tails against marble slabs to prove freshness. Herb sellers rattle dried poppy pods like tiny drums. Orange rinds perfume the air, where a boy cores citrus for passers-by, juice slicking his forearms. Somewhere close, a goat coughs. You thread through knots of shoppers, reading prices chalked on shards of slate. 3 asses for a bunch of leeks, 5 for a string of garlic, 8 for imported pepper dust you will never taste. A cart groans past, piled with amphorae sealed in reeds. Its driver curses a wheel that clicks like a sparrow every turn. A watcher might see only chaos, but beneath the noise lies an order older than tribunes. Those with coin drift center, those without orbit edges, and slaves float through both layers like minnows, invisible until snared. Near the fountain of Ceres, the woman with a gap-toothed smile waves celery the length of her forearm. You test stalks, bending a tip to judge crispness. It snaps clean. She names a price. You counter with half. Her brows knit, but the corner of her mouth curves. Haggling is the sport that keeps ants of poverty from her stall. You finish 2 coins higher than your offer, and 1 lower than hers. Victory by a hair. She ties the celery with rush twine, hands it over like a bouquet. Onions glow ochre in the next booth, their papery skins whispering promises of sweetness. You pick through, avoiding soft spots, piling 7, then 8, then 9 into your palm, before remembering the purse's shallow belly. 8 it will be. The merchant weighs them on a balance beam, adds a pebble to cheat light. But you keep silent. The difference is a single mouthful of porridge, and today mouths compete with debts. You pivot toward the poultry pens, lining the forum's southeast wall. The odor hits first. Feather dust, dung, the sharp ammonia of fear. Hens crowd wicker cages, eyes bright coins, combs flushed. A vendor in a grease-stained tunic cradles a bird upside down, wings limp as laundry, demonstrating its weight to a matron in blue. You wait, feeling the hen's panic flutter inside your own ribs. When the matron nods, 2 birds vanish into a sack, and the vendor turns to you. Cooking or laying? He asks. Cooking. Tonight. He grips a hen around the ankles, lifts. The bird squawks, beating air. You judge breast meat, clear eyes, smooth scales on feet. Acceptable. He names a sum that singes ear tips. You glance at the purse, lips moving in silent calculation. Onions, celery, vinegar refill on the walk back. Maybe an extra heel of bread for Rufus. The numbers wobble like dice. You meet the vendor's gaze, square shoulders not yours to square, and offer 2/3. He laughs, spits, lowers price by a quarter. You hold. At last he shrugs, as though selling cheap amuses him, and shoves the hen into a wicker cylinder. A second bird follows, after similar sparring. Coins gone. The purse sagging thin as onion skin. You tie the cylinder's rope to your basket, balancing weight on opposite hips. The hens cluck low, unsettled, but alive. Their warmth seeping through wicker into your side. Now home before feathers molt from heat. You turn and collide with a boy no taller than your ribs. He reels, dropping a pouch. Silver scatters. Gasp rings. Shoppers freeze the way deer scent wolves. Two larger boys dart, scooping coins. The first scrambles after them, wailing. He reels, dropping a pouch. Silver scatters. A gasp rings. Shoppers freeze the way deer scent wolves. You step back, but a hand clamps your elbow. A lictor in striped cloak glowers down. Thief? Your voice deserts. I carry produce, not silver. The boy with the empty pouch claws at the lictor's leg. They stole from me! She bugged me! Lictor's eyes narrow. His free hand hovers near the rod bundle at his belt. Punishment can be swift, and slaves bleed easiest. Around you, the market breathes silence. A shadow breaks the circle. Vitellius Septimus, saffron tunic, flickering wet. He slides beside the lictor, smiling. This girl serves the house of Claudius Quintus, an honest kitchen hand. I vouch. The lictor grunts, releases your arm. Save Ciara Pony. Vitellius crouches, helps the boy gather the last coin. Murmurs something oil slick and comforting. Shoppers mount back into motion. The market exhales. Vitellius rises, brushing dust from knees. Fortune smiles. We meet again before the sun sets. You curse inwardly, adjust basket. Thank you. You manage. He studies the hens, the celery, the sweat darkening your collar. When dice carve new tides, remember who kept you from the rod. Before you reply, he's gone, weaving gold-toothed grin through cabots and leering statues of minor gods. Your stomach knots tighter than the basket cord. Gratitude is another debt, and debts breed like rats. You choose a side street for the walk back, narrower but shaded by tattered awnings. A water seller sloshes jars, offerings ships for 2 quadrants. You shake head, tongue parchment, coin purse rattling emptily. Heat pools beneath chin, trickles down spine. The hens stir, claws scraping wicker. At a crossroads near the Janus Arch, 3 children race tops, chanting a rhyme about Augustus's lost shoe. Their song wilts, careless, and for a breath you hum along, remembering a sunlit courtyard in Boeotia, where your mother spun thread and sang this same melody in Doric tones. The memory tastes of olives and salt wind, then dissolves when a child's top skids against your sandal. The child frowns, lifts the toy. You hand back the spinning stick and, on impulse, pull a celery leaf from the bundle and offer it. She bites, nose wrinkling, but chews and grins green-toothed. She will tell someone a kitchen slave fed her, and the story will shrink inside a day. Yet, giving something without profit fills the hollow beneath your ribs. You reach the insula as a bell rings sext from a distant temple. Sun blistering, shadows crisp. The stairs climb like punishment. Midway, sweat blurs vision. You pause, shift load, breathe against the musty wall smell of damp brick. Above, Verez's voice filters down, sharp, impatient. You hurry. In the kitchen, Marcella slaps dough on a board, flour blooming around her wrists like pale smoke. She glances at the hens, nods approval. Still breathing. Good. You unload onions, celery. Rufus whistles when he sees the birds. Phoebus mutters about plucking feathers, but his grin betrays relief. Marcella counts vegetables, weighs them in her palm, satisfied you neither squandered nor stole. Then she lifts a brow at the near-empty purse. You shrug. Prices climbed, you say. She grunts. Prices always climb when a creditor circles. The hens are your charge. You carry them to the backyard, where a stump and cleaver wait. Their eyes, bead bright, reflect sky. You whisper thanks neither will understand. Then swift pressure, wings shudder, silence. Blood darkens dusty ground, warm between toes. You pluck feathers in brisk strokes, dropping soft handfuls into a sack that will line pillows for children who never wonder what tickled their tweens. Inside, water boils. You scowled carcasses, scrape pin feathers. Marcella guts them with surgeon speed, sliding organs into a bowl for sausage. The kitchen thickens with smell, iron tang of blood, sweet onion sap, lemony celery leaves. You set the birds to roast on an iron spit, basting with oil and wild thyme. Fat crackles, haloing the hens in aroma fit for senators. Varys breezes in, nostrils flaring. On time, he notes as though surprised. He eyes the birds, the neat heap of trimmings, the precisely 8 onions. Satisfaction softens the crease between his brows, a half finger. He drops a list on the table. Tonight's courses multiplied while you haggled. Pâté of dormice, fig relish, honeyed carrots. Carrots not on your list. Verez taps the parchment. Carrot shed outside the Emilian warehouse. Ask for Gaius. Your knees throb at thought of more walking, but you nod. Marcella spares a sympathetic glance before turning back to dough. No rest when coin bleeds from dice faster than hens from cleavers. Still, as you ladle pan drippings over crisping skin, a thread of pride winds through exhaustion. You fought for every stalk and feather, kept basket and body unbroken, and returned before the sun fell beyond the Capitoline. For a slave, triumph is measured not in freedom, but in moments wrestled from disaster. You wipe sweat with the back of your wrist and reach for the list. The market will still bristle with voices and smells when you return. The dice still tumble in hidden rooms. Deaths still slither under doorways. Yet for now the hens roast golden, and no rod strikes your back. And your name remains Praxida, not lot number on a slate, The aroma of thyme rises like a small, stubborn hope, and you breathe it deep before stepping once more into Rome's hungry streets. The sun perches high, pouring molten glare through the atrium's open roof, gilding dust motes as they drift like lazy planets. You stand near the threshold, pulse tapping behind your ears, balanced between the cool hush of marble halls and the furnace clamor of the kitchen behind you. Marcella lays a hand on your elbow, a silent cue to carry the first course. You steady the bronze tray, slices of honey-glazed ham arranged like rose petals, fig paste glinting above them. Crossing the atrium feels like walking a rope over a chasm. Each foot must know exactly where the mosaic squares begin and end, so porcelain bowls do not chatter. The creditor, Lucius Petronius Varro, lounges opposite the dominus, his toga brushed endlessly by a slave with a peacock feather fan. Varro's ringed fingers drum against a ledger, a rhythm more menacing than any drum of war. You kneel, offer the ham. Varro's eyes skate across your face, cataloging cheekbones, calloused knuckles, strength in wrists, price assessment masquerading as indifference. He plucks a slice, sucks honey from thumb, and hums approval. The dominus, Tiberius Clodius Quintus, lifts his cup. You pivot to refill with watered Falernian, watching wine vein down alabaster walls of the goblet. Children burst through a side corridor. Little Claudia and Marcus chasing a hoop that rattles across tesserae. Claudia collides with Varro's sandal. He scowls, but composes a smile as the domina sweeps in, face powdered pale to hide the flush of worry. She scoops Marcus, smoothing curls that never stay flat, and offers apologies sugary enough to rot teeth. Varro waves them off, yet his ledger hand pauses, as if tallying new leverage. You retreat, knees tingling, back to the kitchen, where Rufus readies the second course. Boiled eggs halved and dusted with lovage salt. Phoebus snorts, mimicking Varro's drumming fingers until Marcella swats him with a cloth. Humor evaporates when Verres appears, brows knitted. Serve the child first, he orders. The creditor observes manners. Which child? But Verres is gone. Marcella loads eggs onto a smaller platter, slips it into your hands. You breathe, step out again. In the atrium, Claudia now sits beside Varro, swinging bare feet. Her nanny hovers, but the creditor murmurs stories of dolphins that rescue sailors, coin-gilded lies that make Claudia gasp. You kneel, present the eggs. Her smile could ransom provinces. Varro taps the ledger closed, as though satisfied with this minor show of civility. The household breeds dutiful servants, he remarks. Claudius nods, lips thin. Praise of slaves rarely flatters masters. It stains them with dependency. Yet he manages a chuckle, and you sense iron tension under the sound. Next course, pulse with grated cheese, golden from the marrow stirred in earlier. You carry 2 steaming bowls, the scent of barley and vinegar rising like home to a peasant, ruin to a patrician if scorched. You align each bowl precisely. Spoons to the right, handles outward. Varro inhales, eyes half closing. He eats slowly, savoring scarcity disguised as simplicity, while Claudius watches, waiting for verdict. Between mouthfuls, Varro revisits debts, interest compounding like mold on damp grain. 15,000 sesterces, due by the calends, he says, tongue dabbing honey from his lip. Dice forgive nothing. Claudius counters, shipment of Spanish garum due in a fortnight, vineyard yields promising, patience requested. Varro smiles, slicing a gesture through air. Patience has market value. Price? Claudius's gaze flicks toward you, before snapping back. The question scuttles across your spine. Am I the currency? Domina clears her throat, proposing refreshment in the peristyle garden. Varro agrees, standing, stretching toga folds like wings. You whisk bowls away, while they migrate through columns into dappled shade where fountains murmur. The children trail, Claudia still licking salt from fingertips. Marcella meets you with a jug of chilled malsum, wine sweetened with must and herbs. Condensation beads the bronze, sliding cool along wrist as you follow the party outside. Sunlight models marble benches beneath lemon trees. Slave gardeners pause hoeing, heads lowered. Their silence thick as sap. Varro reclines, ledger beside him, open again. The domina pours mulsum into glass cups, ornate as dragonfly wings. You stand ready with extra napkins fashioned from worn linen. A bee investigates your sleeve. You remain still until it quits. For swatting invites attention. Conversation drifts. Senate gossip, grain prices, rumors of an outbreak of fever near the Aventine. Varro notes that epidemics make cheap labor cheaper. Claudius chuckles hollowly. Beneath polite talk, ledgers converse in their own tongue. Words slide over you like oil over water, never mixing with skin, yet weaving sheen. Sudden shouts from the front courtyard break the lull. Fabricius arrives, breathless, begging an audience. Garden doors part. He staggers in, thrusting a crumpled pouch of coins toward Claudius. Partial payment. Varro's eyes flare, amused. Claudius counts quickly, lips tightening when the sum falls short. Varro suggests seizing collateral, a warehouse in Ostia. Fabricius collapses to knees, tears streaking dust. The domina gestures. You bring water for Fabricius. He gulps, coughing. Gratitude shining wet on lashes. Varro watches your hand steady the cup, then addresses Claudius. Even your slaves show mercy. A reflection of masterly virtue, compliment or goad. Claudius cannot read the edge, but nods. Fabricius departs, escorted by lictors who linger like shadows. Varro closes his ledger with a thud. Terms, 10 days. Fail, and I select compensations from your household. His gaze canvasses the garden. Statues, silver wind chimes, flesh wearing linen. It lands on you, pauses, then shifts to Marcella, to Rufus visible through colonnade arch. Claudius's shoulders slump fractionally. Marcella prepares honeyed milk, stirring slowly while humming a lullaby. Notes drift over clink of silver and scratch of Phoebus sharpening knives. Outside, cicadas begin their fevered song, rising like warnings. You polish. Think of 10 days squeezing smaller and smaller, like a noose drawn by invisible hands. You should be pleased that you brush your teeth and for the opportunity to enjoy a relaxing story. And finish every day with a bang. In the softest, most gentle tone you can imagine. You polish. Think of 10 days squeezing smaller and smaller. Late afternoon sun angles through latticework, striping the flare. Sweat pastes ash to your forearms, turning skin gray. You rinse in a bucket. Water swirls black, symbolic baptism offering no rebirth. A distant gong signals 6th hour prayers at Jupiter's temple. You wonder what a god hears, the pious vow of the senator, or the muted scrape of a slave's rag on silver. Varys re-enters, tossing a bundle of wilted carrots. Gaius sold the dregs. Make them shine, he orders. You blanch, then saute with honey and cumin, coaxing color where nature failed. The creditor must taste wealth, even as the carrots glaze. Marcella pulls you aside. If sale comes, keep your eyes alive. Buyers love spark. She presses a sliver of dried fig into your palm. Luxury hoarded. You chew. Sweetness startling after hours of salt and smoke. Dusk limbs window edges violet. Lamps are lit, oil thick and fragrant. You arrange polished goblets on a tray, each glowing like a captured sunset. The domina appears. Gown changed to deep indigo, anxious smile stitched tight. She surveys the goblets, nods, then touches your cheek. A rare gesture. Thank you, she breathes. Gratitude from silk to wool, fragile as spider thread. You carry the tray toward the triclinium, where night's theater will unfold. Creditor as honored guest, master as gambler in penance, slaves as silent scene props. 10 days now counts 9 3/4. Yet in each shining cup you left, a small fingerprint, invisible unless held to certain light. A mark that says you were here, breathing. In hall's dim hush, you set the tray down. The first stars wink through the compluvium above, pale and patient. You inhale time, lemon oil, distant city cries, and the copper tang of possibility. Then you turn, step silent on marble, and slip back to the kitchen where fires wait and fate simmers. The late afternoon sun presses against the courtyard walls until the plaster sweats and the painted vines seem to wilt. Varys marches you and 4 others toward the service gate. Each of you bent beneath wicker hampers stuffed with linens that reek of oil, wine, and the unmistakable sweet-sour odor of vomit from last night's revel. The domina's purple-hemmed tablecloth sags over the edge of your load, blotched with a ring where Varro set his cup too long. Its dye alone costs more than a year of your rations, yet you will soon pound it with clay, as if it were sackcloth. You adjust the strap across your forehead, feeling the coarse rope bite the skin above your ears, and follow the line of shoulders swaying ahead. Past the gate lies the alley that funnels runoff from higher streets. It stinks of rot, but the path is quicker, and time is now weighed in fewer denarii. Chickens scatter before Rufus's tread. He mutters apologies, ever gentle despite arms thick as pillars. Marcella limps on a bruised ankle, earned during morning errands, though she will not mention it to Varys. You keep pace behind her, watching for loose cobbles that could twist the bruise further, hoping silently that the debt collector's schedule spares her at the block. At the street's end, the laundry station waits, a low building of brick and open archways where fullers keep tubs of stale urine, chamber pot collections from every insula in the quarter. Steam rises where tubs sit in sun. The smell climbs inside your sinuses and settles like a second skull. Fuller named Secundus, face pocked by lime and sweat, greets Varys with the clipped politeness owed to a paying client. The steward signs a tablet acknowledging weight and count of linens, then leaves you under the fuller's command. Secundus assigns you to the beating vat. You kneel on a plank bridging the tub, hem of your tunic already spotted dark. The linens go in first, twisted into coils that sink with a glug. You step down until urine and water lap mid-calf, grasp the elder end of a paddle, and begin the rhythm. Plunge, lift, press, twist. Each stroke forces liquid through weave and dye, stripping grease and brightening color. Across the vat, Phoebus does the same. His usual jokes drown under the slap of cloth. After a quarter hour, your arms burn, but the movement becomes thoughtless, like tide against rock. Conversation bubbles up, despite the stench. An elderly slave called Uptatus recounts rumors from the Forum Boreum. 3 oxen dead of fever, price of beef plotting, grain merchants whispering about quarantines. Marcella speculates how disease might thin creditors faster than debtors. Her smile flickers at the edges, a candle nearly snuffed. Rufus asks whether Varro truly has the authority to seize children. Optimus shrugs. The law speaks differently to those with enough seals and signet rings. The law speaks differently to those with enough seals and signet rings. You listen, say little, aware that words sprout ears in every corner. When your shift at the beating vat ends, Secundus moves you to the rinse channel, a shallow runnel of clear water diverted from a minor aqueduct. You drag rinsed linens through the current, kneading until the sour tang fades. Here, the air feels almost cool. A sparrow lands on the stone lip, head cocked, perhaps confused by humans willingly soaking themselves. You offer it a fleeting smile. It flits away before your eyes can register the color of its wings. From the rinse, you haul the dripping weight onto slanted boards to dry. You wring fabric until muscles tremble, catching stray threads with fingernails worn smooth by lye. The beautiful purple border of the domina's cloth bleeds pale trails down the slope, and you pray the sun will bleach them invisible before Chena. While you work, Secundus's apprentice, a Gaul with reddened arms, sidles close. He speaks in fractured Greek, asking if the tall girl, Marcella, has a husband. You shake your head, focusing on the sheet you are spreading. His eyes linger. You tighten the cloth's corners, making the gesture sharp enough to cut the air between you. He drifts off, laughter snagging on his teeth. By a twilight, the linens hang like ghost sails across the yard, snapping in a breeze scented finely of river and fig trees. Secundus inspects the load, nods once, then orders them bundled for return. You and Rufus fold each piece into tight rectangles, stacking them inside clean hampers. Urine water trickles from your knees as you bend. The drops darken the dust, forming constellations that vanish as quickly as they appear. The return walk climbs the hill. Hampers feel heavier now, as if each thread has soaked up the day's dread. Street torches sputter to life, their resinous smoke curling above doorways. A beggar near the temple of the divine Julius croons for alms. Rufus slips him a broken barley cake, though such kindness could earn a cuff for wasting provisions. The beggar's whispered blessing trails you like incense. Back at the household, Varys waits just inside the gate, arms crossed. He scrutinizes the stacks, running thick fingers over cloth to check dryness. Satisfied, he commands you to the cellar for amphora duty. No supper, no pause, not while debt ticks. You swallow the ache in your stomach and descend the narrow stone steps, lantern swinging at your hip. The cellar air is damp, scented with pitch, resin, and the faint sweetness of aging wine. Rows of clay amphorae lean in ordered ranks, their rounded bellies dusty. Some bear cracks sealed with old wax. Others list to one side, quart stoppers brittle. Your task is to scrub each jar with abrasive sand and vinegar, so tomorrow's new oil shipment will not taste of last season's lees. Marcella lights 2 additional lamps. Their glow paints gold on sweat sliding down her neck. You begin by tipping a jar on its side, bracing its painted foot in a groove chiseled for the purpose. The mouth yawns, echoing. You pour a ladle of vinegar inside, add a fistful of sand, and thrust in a long-handled rag. Twist, scrape, twist. 3 breaths for each rotation. Grit sings against clay. Beside you, Marcella works in silence until a cork pops somewhere behind and Phoebus curses. The jar he handled fractures, thin hairline, seeping sticky residue onto the floor. Varys's shout bursts down the stairs. He yanks Phoebus by the ear, demands payment equal to the amphora's value. Phoebus blanches. He owns nothing but his name. Varys raises a hand as though to strike, then lowers it, eyes narrowing. The creditor wishes strong backs, he says. Break another, and you'll be first on his list. He stalks away, satisfaction oozing in his wake. The threat hangs after he is gone. Phoebus wipes the leak, jaw clenched. Rufus whispers a jest, about selling veres instead. No one laughs. You resume scrubbing, counting strokes to steady breathing. Somewhere overhead, a lyre plucks from the triclinium, delicate notes floating through floorboards. It is nearly time to serve Varro's evening banquet. You picture polished goblets catching lamplight, each bearing your hidden print. Hours slide like oil. You cycle amphorae from dirty row to clean, stacking rinsed jars near the stair. Fingers prune, wrists ache, but pace and pattern knit a strange calm. Marcella begins humming a Thracian lullaby, low and looping. You join on the second refrain. In harmony, the tasks feel less like chains, more like tides, inescapable, yet rhythmic. Close to midnight, Verres returns, lantern raised. His face is flushed, wine fumes drift from breath. Enough, he slurs. Guests, depart. Beds must be readied. He orders Phoebus to fetch hot water for footbaths, sends Rufus to guard the vestibule while torches are doused, dispatches Marcella to the nurseries. He eyes you last. You, Praxida, silver must be accounted. He thrusts a cloth bag into your hands, clink of spoons and cups within. Count, polish if needed, lock in chest. Lose one piece, and I flay the hide myself. You climb from the cellar, bag clutched close, passing servants extinguishing lamps with pewter snuffers. Corridors smell of roast pork fat and spilt wine. In the counting room, a niche beside the atrium, you pour the silver onto a cedar table. Moonlight through a high window limbs each goblet, plate, and ladle. You arrange them in rows, cross-checking against a tablet of waxed inventory. All present. One prize of tension loosens between shoulder blades. Polishing cloth in hand, you buff rims and handles, though already bright. The repetitive motion soothes. In a cup's curved surface, you catch your reflection. Hair escaping braid, cheeks gray with grit, eyes too old for their years, yet still flaring with stubborn ember. You imagine Mother might know you by those eyes, if fate ever folds space between Rome and Ephesus. A faint scuffle stirs beyond the curtained arch. Voices, Veres, and an unfamiliar man argue in hushed Latin. You still your breathing, ears tilting like a cat's. The stranger speaks of Varro's eagerness, of two prime assets, a cook and a girl with nimble fingers for spices. Coin will flow if the auction is advanced. Verres counters with a higher sum. Numbers volley. Your heart thumps. Cook is Marcella. Nimble is you. Decision. Stay hidden or reveal presence. You choose silence, pressing cloth to silver as if the world depends on sparkle. The men depart. You finish polishing, place each piece into the cedar chest, slide the bronze bolt. Before leaving, you crack the shutters. Night air cools sweat, and stars hang over the city like punctures in velvet. Somewhere, a dog bays, carriage wheels rattle away toward the forum, and temple bells mark the second watch. In the servants' loft, you find Marcella already sprawled on straw, ankle wrapped with a strip torn from her sleeve. She smiles weakly, motions you close. You whisper the overheard plan. Her fingers tighten around yours. "We have 9 days," she murmurs. Perhaps fewer. She closes eyes, but breath stays shallow, alert. You lie beside her, blanket barely covering knees. The day stinks cling to skin. Urine, vinegar, bitter dye. But exhaustion drowns revulsion. You trace the ceiling beam with your gaze until it doubles, blurs, disappears. Thoughts flutter. Purple dye bleeding on washboards. Silver cups reflecting lips. Varro's ringed hand tapping debt across the table. Above all, floats a single ember of resolve. If sale comes, you will not enter the next ledger passive. You will carry a spark, and some ledgers do burn. Sweep edges near. From the courtyard wafts the low murmur of a night guard singing to keep himself awake. The tune weaves with Marcella's breath, with your heartbeat, with distant clop of hooves on paving stones. The city never truly sleeps, but for a sliver of darkness, you let its noise cradle you, and you slide into dreams that smell of salt water and taste of wind beyond the Milvian Bridge. Night has peeled back only the faintest sliver of dawn when Varys' fist hammers the loft door. You surface from a shallow, grit-thick sleep, every muscle echoing yesterday's labor. Marcella winces as she pushes upright, ankle blue at the edges of the wrap, but summons do not wait on pain. You follow the steward down a spiral of echoing stairs into the deepest belly of the house, the wine cellars, where breath hangs cool even when Rome above throbs with summer. Torches spit resinous smoke, casting oily halos across rows of dolia. Giant clay vats half buried in earth, each wide enough to cradle 3 grown men. Torch it. The harvest will not arrive for weeks, but Varro has ordered inspection. Every crack tarred, every bung tested, every inventory mark freshened, so potential buyers see prosperity instead of crumbling debt. Prosperity is an illusion you must now paint. Varys assigns stations. Phoebus and Rufus-lipped lids sniff for sourness. Marcella stirs old lees with a cedar paddle, judging whether they can be sold as vinegar. You, he decides, will retar seams. He presses a pot of pitch into your palms. It steams like molten night. Neat lines, he warns. He presses a pot of pitch into your palms. Neat lines, he warns. He warns. If I smell rot at inspection, I scrape it off your hide. You kneel beside the first dolium, tracing its hairline crack, thin as a crow's feather, but fatal if left to spread. Hitch dribbles from the wooden spatula, hissing where it meets damp clay. The reek clings to nostrils, sweet and bitter, reminding you of funeral pyres back in Ephesus. You steady your breath, work the smear, until the seam gleams midnight black. Around you, the cellar mutters, Rufus hums a tavern reel under his breath, a flimsy shield against gloom. Phoebus, still shaken by last night's threat, counts barrels in a whisper, checking and rechecking the slate tally. Across the aisle, the laundry women Tilla and Vidya scrub amphorae, gossip popping like kernels between their strokes. Varys flanks him, obsequious. They pace, tapping Dolia. Vitellius pauses beside the vat you have just tarred, runs a fingernail along the seam. Pitch comes away clean. Well done, he murmurs. Praise or appraisal, hard to parse. His gaze lingers on your pitch-stained wrists, then slides to Marcella's bound ankle. He notes everything. You feel his tally marks like chalk across skin. Price adjusts for injury, he tells Varys. But her mind is sound. Recipes memorized. Varys nods. She can recite a week's menu forward, backward, in Greek. And the younger one? Vitellius jerks his chin at you. Spice instincts? She seasons by scent alone. Never spoils a pot. Vitellius scratches a line onto wax. Potential. Keep her hands unburnt. He strides off. Sandal echo, snapping like a clasp. Silence cades in. Marcella exhales. They speak as if we are amphorae, she says. Amphorae do not hear, you answer. We do. Vunch is bread crusts dunked in watery wine, eaten atop a stack of jars. Conversation circles the shrinking 9 days. Auction blocks, chalked names, mothers biting tongues, so no one could demand their real birthplaces. Each tale weighs heavier than the last. After the meal, Varys orders amphora, dragged up. Sun bounces off plaster, which reek yields to hot dust and horse droppings. You and Rufus roll jars onto sledges, muscles screaming from vibration. A neighbor's boy mimics your hunched gait. You stick out your tongue when he turns, sparking Rufus's grin. At the fountain, you rinse sand from jar interiors. Water arcs silver, splashing bare feet. For a heartbeat, the world narrows to coolness on skin. Yeah, I'll leave it here. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Take care. You close your eyes. Imagine the Aegean, mother's arms smelling of thyme, and let the thought breathe. Back inside, torch dusk has returned. You stack clean amphora, chalk numbers on each shoulder. 27, 28, 29, 30. Back inside. Torch dusk has returned. Numbers swirl in your head like gnats. If Varro buys you, will he scrape away Claudius's mar to scrawl his own? How many layers of ownership before clay cannot take another carving? Dusk gathers. Varys dismisses Secundus, locks the outer door. Only household slaves remain, finishing tasks before Jenna. You lean against a vat, breath ragged. When Marcella presses a folded parchment into your sooty palm. Found in the refuse, she whispers. Inside, neat strokes list potential lots. Praxida, 70 denarii. Marcella, 65, minus 10 if ankle lame. Rufus, 50. Phoebus, 30. Rage flares. Hot, pure, outrunning fatigue. Phoebus reads over your shoulder, face blanching. 30? I am worth more than a goat. Goats rarely break amphory, you mutter. Sorry the instant words leave. Fear twists language into knives. Marcella slips the list into her bodice. We keep it. Knowledge is a blade. A bell clangs above. Call to prepare dining couches. Workday merely shifts stage. You scrub tar from your arms in the courtyard cistern. Black ribbons swirl down the drain, yet stains cling between knuckles. Night sprawls violet. Fireworks crackle on the Aventine for Apollo. Sparks mimic pitch flecks on your skin. You inhale smoke, laurel, roasting pork, scent of other people's celebration. Then, tie a clean cloth over your tunic. Gather trays and walk toward the triclinium, spine straight despite trembling. At the threshold, you glance back into the cellar dark. Quiet dolia hold fermenting silence. There seems whispering rumors louder than any street brawl. Beneath every smooth lid waits pressure. Debt, dice, the scratch of a stylus. Apply enough heat, and something will burst. Whether clay or flesh breaks first depends on who finds the crack and when. The triclinium glows like the inside of a seashell. Lamplight sliding over painted gods that stride across the walls in impossible blues and reds. You file in behind Marcella, tray balanced at shoulder height, as pipe music coils from a corner where a slave with hollow eyes, fingers, and aulos. Low couches line three sides. Ivory legs gleam. Lion paw feet frozen mid-pounce. Varro has claimed the place of honor. Sandals discarded. Rings flashing whenever he lifts his cup. The Dominus perches opposite. Smile, lacquered fin. Between them stretches a battlefield disguised as dinner. First dish, dormice pâté on crisp honey cakes. You kneel, present the platter. Varro plucks one cake, holds it beneath his nose, as though scent alone might reveal your worth. He bites, chews, raises an eyebrow. Acceptable, he pronounces, and crumbs fall like lazy snow onto mosaic. Varys, flanking a column, exhales relief loud enough to stir torch flame. Second course arrives on Rufus's broad palms, roasted hens you wrestled from the market. The skin crackles, juices hissing where collarbones split. Varro beckons Rufus closer, taps a knife against the bird's breast. Capture. Rufus's big hands tremble as waters spatter. A bead lands on Varro's bare foot. Silence hardens. In one breath, the creditor's temper pivots. He backhands Rufus with the flat of the blade. Blood beads along the scullion's cheek. Clumsy ox, Varro mutters, but amusement glints. Pain is seasoning for his appetite. You step forward with a cloth. Blot the foot, the tiles, Rufus's shame. Varro watches you kneel, smile lazy. Graceful, though, he notes to Claudius. A jewel among stones. Wine must flow. You lift the amphora of Falernian, wrist steady despite the scene. Your heart stutters. But you meet Vero's eyes. He laughs, long and lounge soft. Even pearls slip their string. He flicks a single drop from his knuckle and signals for more. Marcella arrives with honeyed carrots, shiny, fragrant, hiding their wilted origins beneath glaze. Vero spears one, tastes, closes eyes. Tell me, cook, how many heartbeats did you simmer these? Marcella recites timings, spice ratios, voice low but clear. Varro nods, satisfied. Yet you feel the weight of his measuring gaze slide back to you. Between courses, musicians swell, and conversation circles dice. Shipping delays, rumors of rebellion in Judea. Varro leans toward Claudius. We should gamble tonight as comrades do. Stakes quicken the pulse, remind a man he is alive. Claudius's laugh chips at the air. I have wagered enough for one lifetime. Varro's rings clack against his cup. Then a test instead. His eyes gleam like freshly oiled shields. Let the girl craft a dish from what sits already on your table. If her flavor pleases me, I postpone collection. If not, she is forfeit at once. Claudius pales. Domina's fan stops mid-wave. Varys mouths protest, but Varro raises a hand. Only sport. The gods themselves love trials. He turns to you. Do you accept? Acceptance is irrelevant. Refusal would brand you useless. You incline your head, throat dry. Varro claps. Time of one song, he decrees. The Alnos starts a quick, circling tune. You spin toward the service doorway, brain already sieving possibilities. On the sideboard, half bowl of fig paste, dregs of cumin wine, platter of leftover cheese rinds, a sprig of rue used as garnish. In a flash, you recall a Boeotian sweet your mother once coaxed from scraps. You snatch a small copper pan, mash figs with wine until they bloom into a purple sludge. Shave rind for salt. Grind cumin with a pestle borrowed from Rufus. Crumble cheese, fold in chopped rue. Heat, stir, pray. The mixture thickens, sugars caramelizing fast. You spoon dollops onto cooling tiles, watching them set into glossy coins. The song nears its final refrain. You dust each coin with a whisper of black pepper. Contrast against the honey already coating tongues tonight. You carry the plate out as the last note fades. Lamp smoke curls above coins like rising souls. Varro gestures. You kneel, offer the first to him. He bites, chews. Silence floods the room, deeper than any chant. His eyelids droop. He swallows, licks sugar from teeth. Surprising, he says. First heat, then bloom. Sweet, then bite. He flicks a gaze at Claudius. Postponement granted. 6 days. Relief ripples through the room like wind through wheat. Varro, satisfied, tosses a coin into the air. It arcs, lands in your palm. Keep the recipe, he says, though I may claim the cook. Laughter circles cushions. Dinner staggers toward night's edge. More wine, More boasts. Varro grows crimson, voice thick. Claudius slumps, eyes glassy. You refill cups until your wrists numb. The children reappear, sleepy, and nurse cups of watered honey milk. Domina wraps her daughter in a shawl, avoiding Varro's gaze. Finally, Varys calls an end. Guests shuffle, sandals scuffing mosaic. Varro rises, sways, plants a ringed hand on your shoulder. Remember, he whispers, breath sour sweet. A treasure should not tarnish in a low chest. He leaves a warm print on skin. When the atrium empties, work mutates. You, Rufus, Phoebus, scrub spilled wine, scoop olive pits, gather dropped bread for pigs. Marcella limps beside you, but glow hides in her eyes. Your coins saved 6 days. In whisper, she says, enough to plan. Varys returns, lantern swinging, liquor loosening cruelty. He sees wine, stained still faint, near Varro's couch. Strikes Rufus across the back with cane. Wood rings bone. Rufus grunts, but stays upright. You suck breath. Marcella grips your wrist until nails bite. Midnight's marrow settles. Floors shine, lamps gutter, silence yawns. Varys dismisses everyone to pallets. You climb stairs, steps leading, but heart beating strange light. In the loft, you find Marcella unrolling a scrap of wax. On it, a rough map of the city, back lanes to the river, scribbled by Phoebus from memory of porter routes. If we run, she murmurs, we cross at the Sublician Bridge, find the Campanian convoy before dawn. Rufus lowers himself onto straw, back bleeding through tunic. You tear a strip from hem, soak in vinegar from a ration jar, press to his welt. He winces, then offers a crooked smile. 6 days, he whispers. A little eternity. You lie down last, Varro's coin warm in fist. Through the window drift faint sparks, late fireworks or embers of another's feast. You trace the cracks in ceiling timber, thinking of dolia seams, of pitch, of pressure, of bursting. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this spoken word experience, you can follow, subscribe, or download new reading orders. And take a listen for more prompts every day. Whisper quiet, you promise yourself. When the seam splits, it will not be your spine that breaks. Sleep comes grudgingly, tasting of pepper and figs. Somewhere below, a single drop of wine slides off the table's edge and spatters on stone. A soft sound, but loud enough to echo through your dream. Moonlight pours into the loft like watered milk, pale and thin. You wake to the light scrape of Varys's sandals on the ladder, the wooden rungs creaking under his impatience. His voice is a rasp. You feel more than hear. The creditor has gone, but the Domina's sister, who lives 2 streets north by the Temple of Hercules, needs a jar of fresh oil for an early morning ritual. The house, stooped under debt, must still appear generous, so you are the courier. 1 amphora, Varys says, and back before the cockerel on the Capitoline clears his throat. Marcella stirs, offers to go in your place, but Varys snaps that the streets are no place for a limp. His eyes rest on you. You have young legs and, apparently, nothing left to lose. Downstairs, the courtyard is silver and empty. Rufus squats by the cistern, washing dried blood from his tunic. He nods, silent as you pass. The amphora stands near the well, its shoulders stamped with the household seal, a stylized dolphin. You loop a leather harness over it, tilt to judge the heft. Full, but manageable, and swing it onto your back. Clay kisses bruises from earlier tasks. You swap, the iron latch clicks behind you, and the street yawns wide, more shadows than stone. Rome at night is not the Rome of festival fireworks. Vendors' awnings sag like dead birds. Lanterns gutter on doorposts. Cats prowl, eyes coin bright. You skirt a still smoldering trash heap, embers winking. Every footfall reminds you of debts and days, 6 of them, shrinking like drying hides. The amphora sloshes each time your steps quicken. Oil is precious. You steady your pace. At the first corner, the night watch, 3 men in patched cloaks, block the lane, spears crossed low. They ask your business. You answer with the practiced deference of property. Delivery for Domina Livia Hilaria, sister to Claudius Quintus. Tallest watchman taps the amphora's seal. Nods, yet lingers. Eyes tracking the curve of your shoulder scrap. He jokes about cheap masters sending girl slaves unescorted. You smile without teeth, offer that the house trusts Rome's fine custodians. Pride puffed, he waves you on. As you pass, she flicks a coin at you. Bronze, smaller than the one Varro tossed. Payment, he says, for honesty. You catch it, surprised by the weight of kindness in such a city. Domina Livius Domus sits behind a colonnade of chipped travertine. Olive trees whisper overhead. A bleary servant opens at your knock, peers at the seal, then leads you through a garden where statues look half asleep. In her atrium, candles gutter in niches. The air smells of crushed bay leaves. Livia herself, hair unbound, thanks you in a yawn. She presses a fig into your palm for the walk home. No coins, yet the fig's skin is tight and cool. Promise of sweetness later. Her servant stamps a small chit of receipt onto your wax tablet, proof you've completed the errand, and dismisses you back to the street. The sky has deepened to indigo. Somewhere distant, a dog begins the slow bark that summons dawn. You trace a different route home, hoping to avoid the watch again. Alley stones slick with night dew gleam like fish scales. You pass a shutter banging loose. Behind it, 2 lovers argue in whispers sharp enough to cut sails. An overturned cart blocks half the lane, its wheel shattered. You squeeze by, brushing exposed grain that smells of damp bread. At the junction with the street of fruit sellers, a silhouette detaches from doorway darkness. Vitellius Septimus steps into moonlight, arms folded, smile reflecting lamplight that is not there. He says he expected you sooner. He has a gift for predicting routes. You grip the empty harness strap. Vitellius notes the wax chit, the fig. He wonders aloud if a slave allowed to run errands alone might also slip away. Oh, you answer that errands end where they begin, home. He shakes his head as though you disappoint him. 6 days, he reminds you, is not long. Slots at the auction fill quickly. If you have kin to summon or debts of your own, settle them soon. He tips an imaginary cap and melts back into the doorway, scent of myrrh trailing after. Your knees wobble once he's gone. You tuck the fig deeper into your tunic, as though it were a talisman. The moon now hovers above rooftop tiles like a coin off balance. Another corner, another watch patrol. Different faces, same suspicion. They ask to inspect the amphora. You show it empty, explaining delivery just complete. One snorts that empty jars hide runaway kittens. He forces a hand inside, comes out oily. His mates roar. You apologize until they tire of teasing. Near the Forum Boarium, the paving stones widen, and the Tiber's breath drifts damp and metallic. You glimpse barges moored along the quay, silhouettes of oxen sleeping beside wooden crates labeled for Campania. Escape wagons. You picture Phoebus's rough map, the line etching from riverbank to open road. You imagine stepping onto the nearest barge, curling between sacks of wheat, drifting beyond the city's grip before anyone checks the manifest. The fantasy ripples like torchlight on water, then vanishes when a barge guard coughs and shifts his spear. You hurry on, bare feet gripping stone. Dawn's first color dilutes the sky, washing stars away. At the Subura's edge, a drunk slouches against a public fountain, muttering curses at Jupiter. He grabs your wrist, demanding to know the hour. You answer with calm you do not feel. His fingers tighten. He asks if girls like you sell more than oil. Before fear can congeal, a stone whistles past and cracks against the fountain. The drunk yelps, releasing you. From a doorway, Octatus the porter steps forward, hefting another stone. Thank you very much for checking this out. For more TTS content, consult our documentation. Let's make real progress. He escorts you 2 blocks without speaking, leaves you at the Insula gate with a nod heavy as temple doors. Inside, the courtyard is stirring. Chickens gossip, a goat bleats. You deliver the wax chit to Verez, who counts the strokes, sniffing your tunic for wine or perfume. Finding none, he dismisses you to the kitchen for morning prep. No thanks, no sleep. The fig remains in your pocket. You dare not eat it yet. A private promise for later. In the scullery, Marcella sits with her ankle soaking in a bucket. She looks up, relief loosening the lines around her eyes. You recount the journey in hushed tones. Watch Vitellius, the barge convoy, Optios's stone. Rufus appears, fresh welts on his back, and listens. He fingers the small bronze coin from the watchman, marvels at luck that sometimes lands like dew. Phoebus, leaning in the doorway, twirls a spoon like a dagger. 6 days, he mutters, is enough to learn the rhythm of a guard's patrol. A sudden crash snaps the fragile dawn. Tilla drops a stack of bowls. Shards scatter. Varys storms in, seizes her arm, raises a fist. In his glare you see the debt, the fear of Varro, the slipping facade. Something inside you shifts. A seam overheated. You step forward before thought, offer that you jostled Tilla walking past. Ares' focus swivels. He slaps you, open palm, ringing. Pain blooms white. But his anger dissipates. Satisfied with single violence, he orders both of you to later, rinsing blood taste from your lip at the cistern. You split the fig, share half with Tilla, half with Marcella. The fruit is honey and sun, stolen from want. Marcella laughs, soft and hoarse. First true laugh in days. It echoes against stone, startling birds from the eaves. As the sun clears the rooftops, kiln hot work begins anew. Dough to knead, beans to sort, ashes to carry. Yet under every chore hums a pulse. 6 days, a map, a barge, a stone, a coin. You move through tasks like a wheel through mud, steady, gathering resolve. The seam will split, and when it does, you will be in motion, not waiting to crack. From the upper gallery, a child's voice rises, practicing Latin declensions, innocent of ledgers and auctions. You whisper the words along. Amica, amice, amice, friend of a friend, and wonder whom those endings will follow into dawns beyond Rome. In your mind, you conjure the Tiber again, its dark ribbon carrying secrets seaward. You taste the last sweetness of fig on your tongue, inhale the kitchen's wood smoke, and step forward into the clatter of pots, already charting the night to come.